Hello, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
So we got another podcast to drop. Today's episode is with David Johnston from the bodybuilding world. I came across him. I said the way I came across him, I think, in the intro for the show. So yeah, a bit of a different route for us, but he does talk about his love for rock music, so that's all good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, be good. Be a good listen, I think, because he's been through a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah. You know, from being very successful to, I think, probably losing almost all of it, and then obviously not only with his business, but also being a bodybuilder and losing his physique also.
Yeah,
happens to all of us.
Yeah, I know. I was when I put this T-shirt on, and I seen it was 2019. So I'll talk about this after the podcast. But I remember last time I wore it, I didn't have tits. I'm not quite sure where they've come from, but obviously they're lockdown boobs.
Estrogen.
Yeah, but never mind.
Turning into a woman.
That's right. So there we are. They're definitely not bodybuilding ones, unfortunately.
So this is a really long interview, so probably should cut to the chase.
Yeah, we'll keep this short because it's a very, very good listen. And said I was intrigued all the way through it, to be honest, because Dave's got a lot to say, but also it's some good messages in there as well. So yeah, I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, I think the messages come pretty much at the end, but well, you know, we did try to bring them up a few times, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good listen. So
yeah, definitely. Okay.
All right, coolio. We'll cut to the chase.
Yep.
So hello, guys, and we're just Chopsing this morning with David and David. We got David Johnston on with us. Very pleased to have him. He's very well known in the bodybuilding circles. He was a very decent amateur bodybuilder, a more decent bodybuilding coach. He was on Geared Up, which is one of probably the most famous bodybuilding podcast in the bodybuilding world. I think it had the most downloads over the few years it was running. He also likes rock music, so that's always a bonus for David and myself. And so say good morning. Hello, David.
Hey, how you doing?
We're doing all good, man.
Thanks for having me on.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Hey. So tell us, Dave, how is your passion for rock music?
How did it come about?
Yeah.
I was born into a musical family. My father grew up very young playing the guitar. I won't say he was ever incredibly good, but it was just his, dying passion. And what really bonded my parents together in huge part, they met very young and they were both huge Beatles fans.
Okay, yeah.
Good. So they loved the Beatles, and my parents were legitimate, old hippies who grew up in the 60s and 70s, including all the hallucinogens and acid trips and all the psychedelic music and all the rock music, and went to all the concerts. So when I was born, I was born in 79. I was born into that, where there was always vinyl spinning in our house, all hours of the day, morning to night. Huge record collection: Hendrix, the Stones, Beatles, Who, Zeppelin, plus a lot more obscure stuff. But your real meat and potatoes classic rock. And I just listened to that from absolute birth. So I remember by the time I was 4 years old, one day there was a Beatles song on the radio, and I was singing along with it. My dad looked over at me in surprise, and he's like, "You can sing that, and you can hear those melodies and harmonies?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I'd kind of developed really good meter and natural, not perfect pitch, but relative pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I could pull up exactly where a song was even without hearing the song, which, you know, I
Okay.
had musical abilities that a lot of drummers don't have. Kind of had that young. And I started pulling out sets of pots and pans in the kitchen when I was like 3, 4 years old, and setting them up like a makeshift drum set,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
playing on them with a set of wooden spoons. So
Okay.
I just I started playing the drums, so to speak, when I was like 4 years old, if you will. And yeah, just grew up in a musical household. The cool thing about our household too was, even though it was mostly classic rock, my parents were very kind of hip and open to different genres. So there was anything that pertained to rock, meaning like we grew up on a lot of Motown. We grew up on a lot of like 50s era rock, doo-wop,
Yeah.
folk rock. But they kind of stayed current into, you know, because a lot of people, when they hit like 30, stop updating their music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas my parents actually continued into the 80s and even the 90s to like follow what was good and current. So I grew up on like Tom Petty and
Yeah.
John
Yeah.
Cougar Mellencamp and all the good 80s rock and all that. So
Yeah.
which then segued to like hair rock, you know, became my thing once I was 9 years old. I think 8 years old, I got my first Guns N' Roses cassette, and
Awesome.
I was just gone to the races. There
Yeah.
was no turning back.
So actually, as a baby, you were probably rocking in the cradle, so to speak.
Yeah, no, my mom seriously always said that, like, when she was pregnant with me, I would kick along to the rhythm of the songs that they were listening to. So I found that kind of funny. Yep,
Yeah, that's
just
cool,
kind
man.
of born into me.
Yeah, I'm a bit older than you, so you know, I grew up exploring music a bit before that. You know,
When were you born?
I was born in '66.
Okay, so you got 13 years on me. So you're right in between my father and I.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was born in '53.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
he was kind of in his adolescence right around when you were born, but then probably continued to listen to the music that you started listening to when you hit whatever age
Yeah.
you started finding your roots. What were some of your like
Well, I found music
major?
really young because I had a very young mother. I mean, my mother was only 17 when she had me, so
Okay.
and she was a bit of a rebel at the time as well, you know. And she was always hanging around with guys on motorbikes, and especially my uncle Terry had a motorbike, and so she was always into the latest music. And then, I mean, I explained to David. I remember, I don't know how old I was I was 8, I think, in 1974. I remember bringing home Bohemian Rhapsody, you know, as a 7-inch single.
Yep.
And playing it to death on the record player, you know. But I always had, I think I must have had about 150 singles from the 50s, 60s, and early 70s by the time I was 10 years old, you know.
So who were like, would you say would be, you know, in your top 5 major impactful bands growing up, or that
Growing
really
up,
stood out? Yeah, like
I think
who'd you really cut your teeth with?
probably,
Give me an idea.
yeah. Well, the Beatles will have to be in there because everybody listens to the Beatles, you know. It gets drummed into you from a young age, I think, especially when you're my age. Elvis Presley also. I mean, that was everybody's favorite. I wasn't really, as a young kid, I wasn't really into the Stones too much. Queen also, I liked a lot of Queen stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
And then as I was getting into my teens, I was cutting my teeth on punk music and bands like the Sex Pistols and the Damned.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like really, I got such a varied range. You know, I was really into Bob Dylan as well when I was like 12 or 13, you know.
That's
so it's
hilarious.
such a wild.
I always get my father specifically loved Bob Dylan. Both my parents liked him a lot, but my father loved him. And I used to always bust his chops when I was younger and say, Bob Dylan sucks. and he'd be like, he's a great poet, he's a great writer. I'm like, then he should stick to writing books, but he's a horrible singer. So
yeah. Fair
And I
play, he couldn't
noticed,
sing, but
yeah, well, and I noticed this trend in a lot of bands where you have a leader of the band who just has this dynamic energy and core. Like I think another good example is the Dave Matthews Band. For years, I couldn't tolerate that band
yeah,
because his voice just didn't hang with the quality of the music. You know, I felt
yeah,
it like brought it down. It was like stupid and playful instead of like truly dynamic and uplifting. I eventually got past it. I can appreciate him now, but I've noticed, you know, a lot of bands like that where they let this guy sing, even though he's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
clearly not meant to sing.
I think
But I
by the
guess
time I was 15 or so, I think I had about 20 Bob Dylan albums, you know.
okay,
And but then obviously with the hair rock, I cut my teeth also on Iron Maiden, love
yeah,
Motorhead. And
yep,
so it's such a wide scale of music, really, from Bob Dylan to
sure.
Motorhead is huge. So
Oh, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, like I grew up with a lot of Bob Dylan. He wasn't my top choice, but you know, a lot of Bob Dylan, James Taylor,
yeah,
um, geez, who else is it? Cat Williams,
yeah,
or no, not Cat.
Cat
Is it Cat
Stevens,
Williams? Cat Stevens. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Even,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, you know, a ton of folk rock,
yeah,
and mellower stuff too.
yeah,
But then, you know, like I developed to the point where it was to Slayer and Meshuggah and you know, some extreme. Not, I never really got into like death metal,
okay,
but I was into, you know, my cup of tea as I got older became past hair rock, then it became some grunge, but also just some straight thrash. Of course, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Pantera,
yeah, yeah,
all of that. But I also was so, once I started playing music at the age of 9 or 10, playing the drums, I kind of advanced so rapidly that I was a big fan of like progressive anything, progressive rock, progressive metal, you
okay,
know,
yeah,
more technical stuff. And that kind of
yeah,
remains true to this day.
like
So
Rush and stuff. You like Rush?
yeah, and I had an appreciation for him when I was young.
Yeah,
Like, you know, his voice weirded me out. I could tell it was
you're definitely not a
I could
voice man.
like I could tell it was nothing to be like, yeah, his voice does it for me. Like he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
have the swagger of an Axl Rose by any means.
yeah, but Neil
But
Peart, you know.
right, but even when I was like 10 years old, I remember I was taking drum lessons from this lady and I was just eating them up, progressing super fast at the age of, I was probably 12, so I'd probably been playing for 2 years. And they don't make drum transcription music like they do guitar transcription music for most bands.
Okay,
You know, like if you want to learn Metallica's Master of Puppets and you play the guitar,
yeah, you
well,
can look at the
nowadays
tabs.
now
Yeah,
yeah, nowadays you just go on YouTube and find someone else who's playing it and copy them. But you used to be able to find bound music books that
yeah,
had the
yeah.
actual tabs in them, but they never had that for drums, right? The only exception being Rush had, you know, an
Okay,
actual
Okay.
drum transcription book. And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna buy that. So I remember actually learning Tom Sawyer note for note, you know, beginning
yeah.
to end when I
Wow.
was pretty young. Um, but yeah, it was just it was similar to bodybuilding. It was the challenge of it, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and wanting to be able to play something more technical and all
yeah,
that. So
yeah. I mean, the
yeah.
other David's musical background isn't quite as eclectic as ours, I don't think.
No, it's mine was it was always sort of that sort of music in the household. So my father was into the Rolling Stones and the Who and the Beatles and bands like that. So that was kind of like always in the background. But very early doors, I was saying to Terry earlier, I was a massive Michael Jackson fan.
Oh, I
Massive.
was
Remember?
I
Massive. Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just
I
thought
kind
the
of
guy was amazing. So, you know,
I
and then
forgot
when I
that.
got yeah, when I got a bit older, I was introduced to bands like Iron Maiden, Motorhead, Meatloaf, and stuff like that. So then I sort of started listening to that, but I've always maintained, you know, I'll still listen to Michael Jackson today. You know, the guy's phenomenal. You just, you know, you just can't beat a bit of Wacko Jacko on a Saturday afternoon.
I have a Michael Jackson injury story.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah. So like my parents were all classic rock, but they were also hip at the time. So I also grew up with Michael Jackson, and he was my first idol when I was, I think, like 5 years old, probably. And just, I was, you know, trying to dance like him all around the house. I loved Beat It, just played it until the tape wore out. And it was a birthday party. Me and several of my aunts all have birthdays in July, month of July. So we all got together for this birthday party, and we were outside barbecuing. And I wanted to show off that I knew how to moonwalk. And I moonwalked right into a burning hot grill and burned my arm pretty severely, because like no one was really supervising me. My aunts were all just screwing off. And I ended up like screaming and streaking down the street, and everyone had to chase me down, tend to the wounds.
More of a sun walk.
Yeah. But that's how into Michael Jackson I was. He was definitely a major influence for me, you know, very when I was very young, and always stuck with the appreciation for it, you know, even though pop music, or whatever you want to call his genre, certainly my major cup of tea, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate it when it's really good, you know.
Yeah. How old were you when you start playing in bands then?
So I kind of banged on crap throughout my life when I was younger, but kind of on a whim. My dad bought a drum set when I was for my 10th birthday. So that's when I officially started playing the drums. Now, even before he bought it, when I was a kid and before I had any equipment, I would get the neighborhood kids together, like 3-4 of us, and we would like pretend to be in a band.
Okay, yeah.
We would dress up as the different members of Guns N' Roses. I would inevitably be the drummer.
Yeah.
So I would like make up a drum set with boxes or whatever. And we would put on the cassette, crank up the volume. My parents had these huge speakers and huge radio system. So we turn up loud as shit. We were always allowed to play it as loud as we wanted in the house. And we would like lip sync along and act like the band, you know. And that's what we did when we were like 8 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Got my drum set when I was 10, started banging on it, and my parents realized like I could tap along rhythmically with anything that was on the radio. And they're like, holy shit, what's up with this? And it just turned out that my mother worked as a banker at a teller at a bank. She worked at a bank. And one of the other bankers she worked with was a drum teacher.
Okay.
It just happened to be that way. So I started taking lessons from her probably within like my first 3 months, which was really good because it helped steer me towards learning proper technique, you know, harnessing my natural talent, so to speak. Learning to actually read music, learning different genres, all that stuff. So I probably started taking lessons before I was 11 years old. And throughout my whole life, my dad had always played in different like garage bands. So probably around the same time, around 11 years old, he's playing in some garage, and I would go with to like their practices and watch them practice and hang out and be a part of the group, you know.
Yeah.
So he's in this current garage band, and they're practicing to play some local talent show. They're just going to play 2 Leonard Skinner songs, and the drummer kept having to skip practice because he was going to like Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, I think, some shit like that. And so one day I said, hey, can I try sitting in and playing? I think I was still 11 years old, maybe 12. And they were like, and my dad's like, yeah, let him try. And they're like, okay, yeah, go ahead. So I sat in and played and like blew the guy out of the door. You know, like I was just such a better drummer, so much more energy, stuff like that, even at that age. So he ended up having schedule complications. I ended up sitting in and replacing him, playing with them at the age of 11 at that talent show. And then from there, my dad ended up, because at first I would just play drums along with my dad. We would jam along to music in the house. But probably within my first year and a half, we ended up forming a band. It was me, my dad, one of his high school buddies who had played guitar. They reconnected later in life. And then some fourth guy who ended up playing guitar and keyboards. So I was probably 12 years old, and they probably would have been around 40 years old. And we formed a classic rock cover group. We originally named it Night Train after the Guns N' Roses song and the cheap booze. And then later at some point, someone was doing looking into copyright stuff and decided that was a bad idea. So we changed the name to Blue Steel, which is the name of a guitar string, and probably also a bad idea, but whatever. And basically we played together for about 2 years, probably from the age of 12 to the age of 14. And we covered classic rock. Didn't do a lot of Beatles, a little bit of Beatles, more Stones, good amount of Zeppelin, some Hendrix, some Who. Geez, I don't even remember.
Some more classic rock driven rather than pop music.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we ended up playing out a total of 4 or 5 times over the course of 2 years, mostly just someone would have a barbecue and we come play for 2 hours in the backyard. But it was my first ability to get out and actually play in front of an audience, and that was fun. But by the time I'd been playing with them for 2 years, my musical ability had advanced so much beyond theirs. It was all right, I need more challenge in this. So we ended up disbanding for whatever reason, and I wasn't playing with the group for a little while. And I was looking through. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and we have this magazine in Chicago that has musician want ads. So I was reading through that, and I found a band looking for a drummer. They were a progressive hard rock metal band. I call them up, and they said, "Yeah, our influences are Ronnie James Dio era Rush."
Okay.
They were very specific, or not Rush. Excuse me, Ronnie James Dio era Black Sabbath.
All right. Yeah.
As opposed to Ozzy Black Sabbath.
Okay. Yeah.
Some more 80s Black Sabbath and Rush. And I was all right, well, that's cool. It sounds pretty hard. I'd like to audition for this. So my dad drove me out to the audition. Turns out these dudes were all 35 years old, 31 to 38 years old. And I was currently 14 or 15 years old. And I auditioned, and they called me back. They're all right, we tried out 30, 40 drummers. You're the only one that could hang. So we'd like to bring you on, even though you're underage. Which was weird because we got to a point where we want to play clubs, and I wasn't legal enough or old enough, to be able to get in. So we had to bend some rules, but it was cool because at the age of 15, I started already playing some venues that I wouldn't be able to go to for several more years. So I ended up playing with them for 2 years, roughly. It was really cool. It was up in the end, because I was so young, I couldn't even drive. So the guitar player used to have to come pick me up from my house, drive half an hour back to practice, rehearse for an hour and a half, 2 hours, drive me all the way back home, blah, blah, blah. And somehow that group had a financial backer who actually paid. I ended up getting some new equipment, some new cymbals and stands and stuff like that, which is great because I grew up pretty broke and my equipment wasn't great. I was slowly piecing together a decent drum set.
Yeah.
And we ended up actually going into the studio. For the first time, I went into the studio and recording I think a 9 or 10 song album. And I was probably 15 at the time. And I ended up doing all my tracking in like 2 days. You know, I nailed most of my stuff on my first track. It was pretty cool experience. Just never thought I'd get to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we cut the record, and the singer, you know, really thought this was going to become commercially viable. And I knew, like, no, it's not. Like, it's too far out there. You know what I mean? For too many
Yeah.
reasons. But it was musically really fun, like really gratifying, very challenging songs that were in wild time signatures and,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, stuff like that. So, but eventually that kind of wound down. And at this point, I'm like 16, 17 years old, didn't know what to do. And I had a couple schoolmates or classmates who were into heavy metal as I was becoming, you know, progressively more into heavy metal as a teenager. And they played the guitar and the bass respectively, and they wanted to form a group with me. And I jammed with them, and like they just weren't good musicians, you know, like they were just picking up their instruments and starting to toy around, whereas I've been at it for years now. So initially I told them no, I didn't want to do it. Just it was a waste of my time. And throughout this whole period too, like I was also doing marching band, I was doing jazz band, I was doing show choir band, I was doing plays, like pit orchestra.
Okay.
I would get hired. You know, I would do pit orchestra at school plays, and then there was also a local community that somehow the leader of the orchestra started reaching out to me when I was really young. I was like 13, and asking if I wanted to be a part of the pit orchestra, and they paid me to do it. And I was like, hell yeah, I can get paid to play the drums at the age of 13.
Yeah.
I don't care how much it is, I'll take it. So I was doing that. I was doing pep band. I was doing, you name it, I was doing
Yeah.
everything. So even when I had a dry spell, I was still playing my ass off. And finally, probably around the age of like 17, 18, I gave in, ended up playing with this group of guys. We ended up forming a metal band, thrash metal. You know, tried to do it for 2-3 years, you know, with dreams of making it big. And
Yeah.
you know, we ended up recording 2 smaller EPs. One was or LPs. One was a 5-song demo, and then we ended up ditching the singer and one guitar player, stripping down to just one guitarist with a different singer. Went back in, did a 3-song demo. For that one, actually like took press release photos and all that crap and tried making like packets, you know, packages to send off to record. Because again, this is back in 97.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there was internet, but
Yeah. Old
but
speed dial up.
Right, but the commoner didn't really know what they were doing with it. So I was still this mindset of like, I grew up with the dream of being a rock star, so this is how I'm gonna hustle. I'm gonna put together these packets and work my way into the industry and talk to people. So yeah, like I had no plans of going to college or nothing like that. I was gonna be a fucking rock star, simple as that. So sure enough, around the age of graduation, that's what I was doing. I was sending these off to record companies and trying to call people and network and book gigs and stuff like that. But we were never great. You know, I knew we weren't very good, and I didn't have much personal hope for it. And around that age, I started being like, man, I saw that, you know, we graduated high school, and all of my classmates just went off to college. Like they still wanted to jam, they still wanted to do the band thing, but their focus was school, whereas mine was on music. And I was like, shit, no one's taking this seriously. I'm gonna be stuck like cleaning gutters at the age of 60. You know what I mean? So I took a year off after high school, wanted to do a music thing, saw that nobody I knew was all in, and I kind of freaked out, went back to college, said, all right, let's at least get a degree, and you can keep playing while you do that. But yeah, that was really the first part of my musical career, and that's as far as I took it. There was nothing that ever resembled taking it all the way or becoming something. You know, I felt I was a very proficient player. I picked stuff up really rapidly when I play.
Yeah.
And I mostly just learn by ear. But even in like middle school, when I'd only been playing for a year and a half, 2 years, the band director was he was known for and had a reputation for being very demanding, but also bringing like all the championships home, all the time.
Yeah.
So I basically started playing right when I started going through middle school and kind of grew up under this dude.
Yeah.
And he was an awesome progressive teacher. Like, he had our marching band playing songs by Chicago, 25 or 64. He had our jazz band playing songs by Jimi Hendrix, Crosstown Traffic.
Yeah.
He was cool. So
yeah,
he
I wish
pushed
more
the
teachers were
envelope.
like that.
Yeah. So like when we used to do, a jazz band, you warm up with a 12-bar blues, bump, bum, 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 all that shit. And different people would improvise over it, and it would give young players a chance to learn to improvise. So then he got the idea, this director, why don't I do it with the actual symphonic band, with the flutes and the clarinets and everyone, and let them try it. So we're doing it, and I was like, screw it, man, I'm gonna do like a timpani solo in the middle of this, just like with all sorts of bent pitches and like all sorts of weird, I'm gonna do it super far out. So I would just use it as an excuse to do wild shit like that when I was young.
Yeah.
He loved it and totally encouraged it. So at the end of middle school, he would, give out an award for like musician of the year. And of course that never goes to like a drummer, because they're not like drummers aren't like musicians,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I ended up, along with this other very talented saxophone player who actually ended up going professional. We ended up winning it together. So at a pretty, and the drum teacher I was taking lessons from, I rapidly became her like star pupil. And we ended up doing performances where we did like duets together and all sorts of cool shit. Like I kind of got let into the adult world earlier because of being
being in a band with your
kind of
dad.
a prodigy.
Yeah.
So so when I was younger, I was pretty serious about it. I was pretty good at a young age. Just didn't really pull the right triggers to find the right market.
Yeah, you didn't find the right people, really, by the sound of it.
Yeah. Yep.
You still play now, or you just knocked it on the head completely, have you?
No, so then, like when I went through college, I continued to play a little bit, but no real serious like commitments with bands. And then when I finished college, that's when I really started getting into bodybuilding.
Okay.
So I had moved into a new house, and I brought my big elaborate drum set, and I brought my beginning weight set, and I put one in one corner of the basement, one in the other corner of the basement. And it's funny, like when I started doing the whole lifting thing, I pretty much lost interest in playing the drums, for a while. I just became intensely passionate about lifting. I had no prospects with the music thing. I just relocated and hadn't played in a serious group in several years, and I don't know, just kind of wasn't super into it. So I just stopped playing, kept the drums for a while, and eventually it was just like, all right, why am I even holding on to these? So I didn't play between 2003 and 2016, I think, or 2017. I can't remember.
A long time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then finally, a couple of years ago, when I was winding down with competing and all that, it's like, all right, why don't we get an electric kit and see if we can still remember how to do this? And I did, and was a little rusty, but I was amazed that I changed a lot of my stops pretty easily. And because it turns out, that whole time I wasn't playing, I was still listening to a lot more variety of music, a lot more progressive music, stuff like that, and kind of tapping along with it and still untangling how to play it. as
Yeah,
weird as that
yeah.
sounds. So even though I took a 13-year break, when I got back to playing after my first few weeks, well, actually, like once I first got the kit, I didn't take it that seriously, but within a year we had moved up to Rhode Island, and I ended up getting an acoustic kit, and I started practicing pretty regularly every day. And it was weird. I actually started getting like better than I had been when I was younger. In part just because like now I was more in tune with my muscles from my bodybuilding stuff, so I could like get better biofeedback on how to control things with my playing and stuff like that. Yeah. So been back to playing again for the last couple of years, and played with a couple cover bands over these last few years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's cool. What about live music then, David? Do you go and see live bands very often? Because obviously you've done the performance side. You interested in the spectator side as well?
I did it a good amount when I was younger, when I was a teenager, a little bit in my 20s. I haven't done it much in the last 20 years just because I became such a workaholic that like I never took time to do anything. So between the years like 2003 to 2015, minimal outings, minimal concerts that I attended for a good 10 to 15 year block. Then, slowly started to get to a couple more, around 2015, 2016. And in the last 5 years, I've been to a dozen, but I find overall it's not, like some people live and die for it. Like some people, it's totally their thing, that live energy they get when they go to a show. For me, and again, it really depends on like the size of the venue and the type of band that you're seeing, but I kind of feel like I outgrew. I don't really have much interest in going to like metal shows anymore. You know what I mean? I have a couple in recent years. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of a band called Ginger. It's a metal band from the Ukraine. They came through a couple years ago, and I saw them in Boston. In the last 5-6 years, I'm a real big fan of a progressive metal band, Periphery. So seen them half a dozen times last several years. Another progressive band, Animals as Leaders, seen them a couple times the last couple years. But yeah, not a lot. And since COVID, nothing at all.
Yeah, of course.
Which sucks because like the bands I was playing with were getting to the point where they were starting to gig out once a month on average, which was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I hadn't done it in a long time. Was really starting to like get my sea legs back and just have some recreational fun with it. And COVID kind of knocked the crap out of that. So
yeah, cool.
So much for that.
Yeah. Cool. So you sort of ditched your drums for bodybuilding, and then you, like I said, you were competing in bodybuilding for a few years, and then you became a pretty successful coach also. And you touched on the fact that you were a workaholic. I mean, putting hours and hours into building a body, hours and hours. I mean, years and years, actually. It's not hours and hours, but it takes hours and hours every week, You're saying you're a workaholic. I mean, how did you balance your home life and your working life?
Not well.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of it is just, and it took me I was always kind of aware of the fact that as I became older, most of the things that I would do in life that I would get into, I would become very driven and kind of excel at them. I had done that. I'd done that at school, in school, at college. I'd done that with music. I seem to be able to pick things up and run with them, where I'd kind of come from a background of a family where we were not very successful. We really struggled for money and
Yeah.
had some tough times and kind of a lot of fear of, losing it all, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Plus with that, like a lot of arguing, constant arguing over like money and financial shit. So I just, when I got through my teenage bullshit drama that we all go through,
Yeah.
I became the type of person that would just, when I would do something, I would just push myself very, very hard at it. And I guess to a point that you could call kind of extreme. So I'd done so in college, you know, done incredibly well, graduated, top of my field. And when it was all said and done, just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of burnt out on this. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm just sick of it. I need something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, once I got into bodybuilding, like it was just, at first it was just about lifting. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't trying to help anybody else or coach anybody else or do any
Yeah.
shit like that.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I was just working as a, furniture mover, truck driver, and then coming home and lifting weights. And that's what I was doing after college for life. And it was awesome. I loved it, But after, 6, 7 months of doing it, I had been making good progress, and coworkers started asking me for tips and tricks, and family members started asking for tips and tricks, and so I started helping people a little bit. And eventually, about a year and a half into that, I'd kind of transformed my physique, gotten very lean, built a good muscular base, and I was helping enough people. I was like, why don't you do this for a living? So I looked into becoming a trainer, became a trainer, and at the first year and a half of doing it, like I slowly built a reputation that was positive and had a small following, but I wasn't killing myself with it. You know what I mean? Like I was still living with my parents. My bills weren't bad. Everything was just simple. And it, I hate to put it out there, but it seems to be the case whenever I meet a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of a sudden the financial requirements of life just become radically different than seems sane or possible to me.
Okay.
So anyways, I ended up dating this girl, Kathy, when I was prepping for I'd been a trainer for a couple of years, like 2007, prepping for my first show. She wants to get a house together. All of a sudden, we're tied into this huge labor house. All of a sudden, like, as a personal trainer, you don't make a ton of money. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you can, but most don't. Like back then, most were making shit.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Well, can you commit to this mortgage?" I'm like, "I don't know. I make all sorts of different money all over the time. I'm not trained to be a business person. I don't know."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just told her, I'm like, yeah, I'll commit to making that happen. And from then on, it was just like flipping a switch where I became just very machine-like in making sure I was growing my business and not going to fail, so to speak. So yeah, just this is back all the way in 2007. Just started working. I'd always worked long hours, 70-hour weeks as a furniture mover, stuff like that, 80-hour weeks even. Kept doing that as a trainer through 2007. But after 2 years of it, was just like, dude, I'm coming home. Like, you're just sleeping on the couch to
Yeah.
support this big fancy house. This makes no sense. Like, this isn't what I want to do. Screw this. So I'm out. I'm out. And at that point, my reputation had grown pretty decent. So the business just kind of continued to grow. And I started dating Nikki, who I've been married rapidly in 2008. We decided to relocate from Chicago out to Baltimore. And just because our boss had moved out there and we wanted to work under that boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got out there, didn't realize I'd have to like start all over with building my reputation, because back then there was no social media, I had no website,
Yeah.
nothing like that. So now I'm in a totally different market. So that sucked, because I just spent like 2.5 years kind of doing that. And now we are starting from scratch. But either way, I had some good ideas this time around, and within just a couple months was, probably the top trainer in that area, but was working some pretty ragged hours in order to achieve that. And I decided what really killed me over time was just I ran my business really hard, but I also thought I was going to be a competitive bodybuilder at the same time.
Yeah.
And I also thought I was going to have a family at the same time.
Okay.
Like doing those three for me
Yeah.
was just an incredibly difficult balance.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, you can't split yourself in three, yeah?
yeah. I just never nailed it down. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, yeah, just the business. We moved out to Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, '08. Business grew a little slow at first, but by '09, my wife was pregnant and ready to have her first kid, and I was just kind of like determined to make sure. I had no idea how I was going to make it work, but I was like,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm going to make this work. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And kept growing my business. I'm still working at a chain gym through '09 into 2010. Halfway through 2010, in June 2010, my wife and I were both prepping. We're like 25 weeks into our prep. We're like 4 weeks out from our show. I've dropped huge amount, 75, 80 pounds of fat, and it's my first prep using gear.
Yeah.
So it's my wife's first contest ever, her first prep. I have my first fleet of competitors that I've prepped, and my daughter is 10 months old, 11 months old, and I get fired from my job at this gym.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh. So of course it's just, huge pain in the ass to make sure I can transition everything. I got from that point forward, I go independent at a local hardcore gym that ends
Yeah.
up doing great because of it. Like, it was the best thing ever that I got fired, but it was not great timing. But either way, through 2010 into 2011, just the business continued to grow. Like, I was just taking on so many clients, training 2 clients an hour every hour for 10 hours straight, 12 hours straight, 6 days a week. So, I'd be training 24 different people a day and really pushing these people to the point where they were having some pretty massive transformations.
Yeah.
Then I would have them sending all of their diet information, cardio information, all that info over, all week long. Or I would just, my one day off from training clients, I would be doing that on the computer for
Yeah.
another 15, 16 hours. So, this is all before we even start getting into like podcasting and social media, all the other crap that I just started stacking on my plate. So
Yeah.
So by the time 2012 hit, like, I competed 4 times that year, and between my prep that year, plus I ended up tearing my right biceps early in the prep, which, just made things really challenging because I second guessed a lot of aspects of, would I be able to compete? Would I be successful?
Yeah.
Could I recover in time? So I'd fall off the diet, cheat on the diet, get back on, push myself harder for it. It was just a crappy prep, but I did all my own prep. I did all my own prep that year. Ended up dieting for like 36 weeks, something insane like that.
That's a long prep, man.
Yeah, well, in part because the injury, pushed things back, and in part because I did 4 shows. Like, the first show was only 24 weeks into the prep, I think. But then when you do 4 shows that are spread out, yeah, it ends up just lasting forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So between how much the business had grown, pushing myself through that prep, just all that, at that age, my daughter was 2.5, 3 years old. My wife was going back to school for nursing,
Yeah.
and I was responsible for, like, bringing my daughter to daycare, picking her up, all the stuff. And I just remember life running at a pace where, like, I was dragging this 2-year-old down the hall by her arm, like, rapidly to throw her into the daycare so I could run upstairs and get my cardio in. And, I just started hating it.
Yeah.
I was really proud of what I had accomplished. What's that?
I said, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So, like, even towards the end of that prep, I started having some digestion issues. I would eat my final meal go to sleep, wake up about an hour later, be very nauseous, and end up, throwing back up my
Yeah.
final meal. And I talked to my buddy about it, and he's like, "That's not good. You gotta go to the doctor." I'm like, "No, I just think it's from the stress and stimulants I'm using and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
even back in 2012, I started having some issues from it. So by the time that season was done, it lasted forever, and I was real proud of what I accomplished. But we took a week and went on vacation, did some self-reflection, and of course, stupidly came off all gear with no PCT.
Yeah.
And just crashed, and kind of just went into this probably my first real experience with like depression, where it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse,
Yeah.
and and I kind of had decided I had to step back from some aspect of what I was doing, and I already wasn't putting the time into my family that I wanted to, so I couldn't step back from that. And I didn't feel like I could step back from my business at that point. I didn't feel like my family was secure enough at that point, with my wife still not working, putting our daughter in daycare, being the sole provider, all that stuff. So I didn't feel like I could really step back on business at that point. So I just decided, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna just stop bodybuilding for the time being.
Yeah.
Which was a terrible from a mental health perspective, not a great decision to just completely come off hormones, completely stop training, stop pursuing the thing that you love and that you're passionate about. It would have been far more sensible to find a way to budget my time, train on a limited schedule. Because I even did that. Like when I prepped for my shows in 2010, my schedule was so jam packed that I would only lift 3 days a week, which for a bodybuilder in prep is like unheard of. They typically train at least 5 days a week.
5 days, yeah.
Often 6 days a week.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't possible, so I would only lift 3 days a week, and I was just very analytical in what I had to do in order to achieve the shape I wanted to achieve for the show. So I was always flirting with that line of like barely able to hold it together,
Yeah.
And by 2012, it had kind of, exploded a little bit. So yeah, I stepped back from training for a while and went into this depression that kind of sucked. But at that point, I didn't have the opportunity to I was training so many clients and had kind of developed this reputation for being such a leader. Being so strong-willed and able to work through anything and invincible almost, what I mean? That I just kind of kept that face on when I would go to work and train all these people, what I mean? So it got to a point in 2012 where things were bad enough where I started reaching out, trying to find some help with a psychiatrist and whatnot. But, the problem is I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't done my research. I ended up linking up with one psychiatrist. We didn't hit it off great, but, she thought the real root of my problem, the first thing I needed to do was immediately just kind of fix my sleep patterns, because I was running on 3 hours of sleep a night, probably on average. And a lot of the times I would skip a night and just go 2 days on no sleep. And that's how much I was working at the time. And it had been that way for a couple of years at that point. And, with that, I was becoming more agitated, more anxious, more depression was trickling in. So she thought we had to fix that. And she wanted me to totally change my diet and eat less animal protein. And, she kind of struck me. She kind of struck me as, a little hippy dippy.
Yeah.
And, the first thing she did was prescribe me benzos.
Yeah.
To help with my sleep. and the benzos are very addictive.
Yeah.
And which I didn't really know, but I took them and stayed awake right through the first dose. So I took a second dose and rapidly realized, like, these are not a good thing. These are something that
Yeah.
you're going to just like plow through, and just no, not a good option. So I mean, I got a little bit of help in 2012, but not nearly enough. I didn't stick with I didn't find a person that I gelled with. I didn't stick with a person long enough and give enough things a chance to find something that would help me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
work for me. But part of the reason I didn't was just because my schedule was so packed with business at that point, and I felt that I had to service that
Yeah. Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Like I felt my family needed it, that I wouldn't take the time to like set up the appointments, follow through with the appointments. It was just, I had to train, and or no, at that point I wasn't training. But I just had to service my clients, and I did it all day long, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I didn't really get the help I needed. And, as 2013 approached, I started training bigger teams of competitors because my name had grown to that point. So 2013 was like the first year that in Maryland, I started bringing teams of like 15 competitors to a show at a time.
Okay.
And 2013 was like the first year I started like helping Adam McVeigh with his prep. So we kind of like reconnect, even though we didn't live in the same area anymore. We kind of reconnected and started working together again, because Geared Up started towards the end of 2013.
Yeah.
And even though I was just like wallowing in this depression, my business just kept growing, and just, which was kind of cool, but I was not feeling great. But eventually just kind of started working my way through it and feeling a little bit better, and got inspired to, I actually got inspired by one of my competitors. She was a total badass and made me realize like I just had to get my shit together and start training again.
Yeah.
I would start feeling better. So sure enough, just kind of did that, but never modified my lifestyle or my behaviors.
Yeah.
Just kept working as hard as ever.
Well, that's the problem with men. I think men in general is they tend really to hide the fact that they're not feeling too great. It's sort of roll your sleeves up and get on with it. This is what people need from me, and never mind how I'm feeling. I'll just put it in my pocket for a while and see where we go from there. But
right.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's really difficult as a man to be quite open about it with people around you, your general colleagues, or people that are actually working with you, to actually open up. And it's, we've got to try and somehow get this message across that sometimes it's okay not to be okay, and too many men do tend to shy away from that fact. I mean, you're telling me that you were so enveloped in your work, if you like, that definitely wasn't playing on your it wasn't sort of a level playing field. You're immersed in your work, so that doesn't do your mental health any good, especially when you're not sleeping so much,
right?
As you're saying. And I mean, I don't know how we can get that message out there, really. I mean, it's quite tough. But anyway, sorry for interrupting you. Go on.
No. Well, and I was kind of in tune with the fact, like, I talked to my wife about how I was feeling, and then a couple of other, one, maybe two other close people in my life.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really kept it very well covered up and hidden throughout a lot of that period. So yeah, it's just, it is hard. It's absolutely hard. And the other hard thing is when you're getting conflicting messages, meaning, in a lot of ways, my life was becoming progressively more successful.
Yeah.
And I was, advancing up the chain, if you will, which really mattered to me because I had this kind of fear of failure.
Yeah.
just from a pretty young age, you know, like
Yeah.
in part because like having wanting to do the music thing and having grown up in a kind of household where, you know, my parents didn't go to college. The importance of it wasn't really stressed. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I was going to be a musician and I was going to be a famous rock star. I truly believe that. So as high school went on and I started to have some, you know, problems at home and stuff like that, I never took an ACT. I never took an SAT. I almost failed out of high school. I got terrible grades because I was, you know, I had behavioral problems and shit like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So with that, I never planned to go to college. Like I plan to be a musician and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, because of that, when I went back to college, like my degree's in philosophy, which doesn't translate to like a business degree or a doctor or a lawyer or some simple, obvious, here are the steps
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
being successful type life. So it was weird, you know, like after college, I had a lot of menial jobs, blue collar jobs. And once I started lifting, doing the bodybuilding thing, doing the personal training thing, you know, again, most trainers don't make much. Most people go
Yeah.
into the field because it's a dream job. Like, oh, I love the gym and I love being at the gym. And wouldn't it be great to be at the gym all day long,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
just wearing workout clothes and, you know, helping people. And oh, it'd be awesome. Like, yeah, when you first start training and you really get into it, like it's like church. You just
Yeah. Yeah.
you want to be there. There's an energy there. But either way, like I didn't make my first year doing it, I probably made $25,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Thank God I lived with my parents. But all of a sudden, you bust your ass for a couple of years and you're doing well. There's payoff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
There's tons of payoff. So that's the problem is you're getting these conflicting messages. In one sense, it looks like life's going great and you're succeeding and slaying the dragon, if you will, so that your family can be secure,
Yeah.
make something out of your life, so to speak. But you're not taking the time to really stop and say, all right, like, am I enjoying this? How do I feel?
Yeah.
If something is wrong, how do I fix it?
Yeah.
You know, it
But
just kind of it became like a runaway train.
yeah. Yeah. But also being a bodybuilder in yourself, you know, you're building this hard exterior, if you like. You're building this He-Man body, you know, and inside your
Yep.
mind is starting to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of a bit of a misnomer, really. I mean, you looked at as this great figure of a man, you know,
Right.
but then you're not really wearing your heart on your sleeve, so you're not really portraying yourself as you really would be, you know.
Well, you know, and at first, like when I took on that volume of work, especially around the time when my wife was pregnant and the first year or two of my daughter's life, so say like 2-3 year period. At first during that period, I took on a certain work volume because like I had to, and there was no other choice. And sometimes you just do what you got to fucking do and man
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But after that point, there should have been a reassessment where I was like, okay, you can't do this forever just because people are rushing at you and throwing dollars in your face.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I guess my point is that first couple of years I did it, I proved I could do it, even though it seemed like inhuman and impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't gonna fucking fail at it. So those first couple of years, I proved I could do it. And the stupid me, once I knew I could do it, then it was like, well, then I will do it. I will
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
at this pace indefinitely, you know, and I had plenty of people tell me along the way. People I respected, people that were smart, you know, hey man, you need to slow down, you
Yeah.
need to take a break, you're
Yeah.
pushing yourself too hard, blah, 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 blah. And I just developed this like, fuck that mentality. Like I almost, you know, I can do whatever
Yeah.
because I don't fail at whatever I put my mind
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
and whatever adversity gets thrown at me, I just find a way to like overcome it and push through it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
You got your Superman
wasn't
cape on.
yeah, but not paying any attention to how I was feeling, not paying any until it was like too late
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just everything was falling apart and all that. So
Do you think there was a point, David, that perhaps if you had taken a step back, you could have identified you were going down that road and maybe thought, hang on a minute, man, I need to check out what I'm doing here and look after myself a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I just wish I had known more, you know what I mean? Like as I was going to, learn how to properly express myself and learn how to assess how I was feeling and all that. Everything was just kind of chaos. Just once you got to the point where like all hours a day, your phone is blowing up, your email is blowing up, you're training 2 people at a time, and you got other people coming in asking for merchandise, asking for this, um, so I never did the assessing. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Just powered through it, muscle through it. But yeah, like knowing what I know now, if I could have just stopped and, assessed things and come up with like a business plan and said, all right,
Yeah.
here's how we're going to do things. Yeah, it would have been so much different, totally different.
Yeah. I think that's half the problem, isn't it? You're so focused on what you're doing. You're looking at the goal at the end of the, whether it be the dollars or the body or whatever it is, that's your main goal, isn't it? You keep striving to achieve that goal.
Right. Well, and I think, bodybuilding as a culture rewards that, you know what I mean? Like that's what it's all about. It's about pushing yourself beyond limits. And I just kind of found pretty early I was good at pushing myself beyond limits, whether it was with sleep, whether it was with nutrition, being able to really push my diet hard when I was prepping so I could have these huge dramatic body transformations. But of course that still taxes you. Whether it was with a work schedule, whether it was with whatever, I would have just found that I'm very good at pushing myself beyond limits. And it's tricky because it's like a double-edged sword.
It is. It's a conflict. You get conflicting messages from bodybuilding. Most bodybuilders, that are training competitively, never think they're big enough. They never think they're hard enough. They never think they're good enough. But then you've got the other side of the coin where, wow, I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. And, especially in your case with your business and stuff. So it's like you're fighting two sides of the coin, really.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And that is really conflicting.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure some people can do it. I don't know. It's tricky.
I don't know.
In my experience, from what I've seen in my just about 2 decades in this industry, most people either do well competing, but they don't necessarily have like a super demanding business or personal life or whatever, or people have a very demanding business life and they don't do great with competition. They might prep for a show, but they can never kind of like put their heart and soul into it or into their training like they should, or whatever the case might be. So it just seems that doing both full tilt, I kind of knew with the competing thing, like I got into it when I started training. I had no intentions of competing. And I started working as a personal trainer and I had no intentions of competing. And when I started working as a trainer at my first gym, it was kind of a hardcore gym and there were a couple competitive bodybuilders there. So I decided when I started working at my first gym that I was going to diet down real hard and kind of get like shredded for the first time. And, just to do it, to learn my body and learn the nutritional side of things and all that. So I did some pictures. And one day I'm sitting around with these other co-trainers who are bodybuilders, like, hey man, you look good, you're shredded. I'm like, thanks. They said, you gonna compete? And I said, no, I never thought I could do such a thing. They're like, well, you need to be bigger, but yeah, you could do it. You look good. I'm like, all right. So this is back in, again, 04. This is before everyone in the world competed. Like back in 2004, you want to compete, you had to be a bodybuilder. There was no men's physique. And I was 6'1" with a big frame, and I was natural. So
Yeah.
like I had a long way to go. But you know, I'd never planned on competing, and I did it in '07. I took several more years before I did my first show. This was back in '04. I did my first show in '07. So it took 3 more years of kind of bulking up and cutting down and bulking up and cutting down. Finally did my first show in '07, all natural. But by that point, my training business was already starting to like grow pretty strong, to the point where it was kind of evident to me that the business mattered more than the competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like don't get me wrong, I was gonna live lifestyle,
Yeah.
and I was gonna train and all that shit, but I wasn't gonna sink my concerns into being a competitor.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew from early on when I did it, like again, we relocated from Chicago in '08 out to Baltimore. And once we got there, had to reestablish ourselves in a new market, my new wife and I. And I told her, I was like, you know, we'd been partying a little bit, and we were kind of like a little out of shape, not shredded by any means.
Yeah.
So we got there, and I said, hey, let's just diet hard for like 12 weeks so we can like do a transformation, get some notoriety, and start building our rep out here. And I realized there was a show coming up 8 weeks after that. So I'm like, all right, screw it. I'll do that as my second show, and I'll compete in this untested show, even though I'm still natty, and do my own
Yeah.
prep.
Yeah.
So I kind of used competition over the years as a means of promoting my business and building my business and my reputation in the area. I never had any hopes and dreams of going anywhere with it. Never thought I could go pro.
Yeah.
Didn't think. And again, you know, like for anyone who actually listens to this, the standards for going pro nowadays are drastically different than they were even 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in 2000. Back then, you really had to have genetically blessed bone structure and muscle tie-ins and all that in order to
Yeah.
be a pro.
But now they
Pro
just give
bodybuilder.
out pro cards like candy, you know?
Well, that and the fact that, like, you know, 20 years ago when I was getting into it, it wasn't as clear cut. Like since in the last 20 years with the internet, the recipe for being a successful bodybuilder, you know, like the
Yeah.
right drug cycle, the right nutrition plan, the right training program. There's so much information out there. People can get further faster nowadays
Yeah.
than they
Sure.
could
Yeah.
they could 20 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago, it was more of an exploratory process where
Yeah.
you piece together bits and pieces of information from like the old dude in the gym, plus
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what you read on bodybuilding.com,
Yeah.
plus like, you know, you just did what you could to learn,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it wasn't as cut and dry as it is nowadays.
No, no. I
So
mean, I started bodybuilding in 19, I'm show my age now, 1985, 86.
okay.
So, I mean, I was 20, so I was still a bit of a late starter, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no real information. You know, I was lucky enough to train in a gym. There was an Olympic powerlifter there, and some of my friends were really, really hardcore, you know.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to be able to scramble bits of information from them. I mean, yeah, drugs were really like under the carpet, you know. Nobody talked about drugs, and everybody thought that you were taking like liver tablets to get big, and you know. It was not the case that it is today, where you know you got your average Joe in the gym who's like 19 years old on a gram of tren and a gram of test a week.
Right.
You know, just to go to the beach. It's like it's crazy. And I'm sure that can contribute to a good mental health situation, you know, going down the line.
No, makes me wonder, you know. Well, and that's the other thing too, you know, like I was a natural bodybuilder from 2003 until 2009.
Yeah.
I did my first 3 shows naturally. And I did that because when I started reading and educating myself on how to get in shape and weight training and all that, which I did after college, all the pros seem to agree on the fact that you should build a foundation
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should learn how to eat properly. You should learn how to train properly. And plus being young, you know, I started training when I was 24.
Yeah.
I figured I still had plenty of tests in my system. I should be able to grow pretty easily. So I started training naturally. Just I figured if the pros said this is how to do it, then this is how you should do it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
right.
like take them at their word.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that is not always the thinking. People assume if someone says something, oh, they must be lying. They must be
Exactly.
trying to
Yeah.
find a
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
trying to
Now
find
you've
a
got
way
the
to
lion
capitalize.
culture. And,
But yeah, so
yeah.
I trained Natty for those first several years, and then in 2009, you know, I had my first off season where I was using gear, and you know, I started conservatively. You know, like my first cycle was 500 mgs a test a week for 12 weeks, and then I stacked 300 mgs deca on top of that 500 mgs test for the final 6 weeks of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I just slowly built up and slowly built up. But even with that, like with where my family was at, with having a newborn at home and a wife who wasn't working and working a job where like, you know, I had no benefits because we had to be self-insured at this point, and no safety net underneath, you know, all the shit. I wasn't in a position where like I was really willing to spend money on supplements and
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's another reason I was very conservative with how I introduced it and approached it over the years.
Yeah.
Just because I saw guys blowing, you know, hefty amounts of money, especially once they introduced GH, you know, growth hormone, gets very expensive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Especially back in the day.
yeah, and I just couldn't justify that. So, you know, I was very moderate user for my first couple of years and slowly built up intake. Um, I probably realistically underplayed or undervalued any negative effects that it may have been having,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of like mental health and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, just it's hard to pick apart at that point what's causing what, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're working that many hours a week, getting that little sleep, having such high stress levels from so many people contacting you all day long, needing help,
Yeah.
never taking 5 minutes to just like sit down and breathe, rushing your meal, you know,
Yeah.
while trying to like cram in, you know, 5,000-6,000 calories a day
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
clean food,
Yeah.
you know, trying
Training
to
every
find the
day.
yeah, trying to find the time to eat that, all
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I think I probably undervalued um possible like stress and aggression and stuff like that related to using gear over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So you sort of like stopped training and yeah, so you stopped competitive training then, and then you probably
yeah.
stopped training when 2016, 2017 maybe.
Yeah, 2016 was my last competition season. By that point, you know, the business had grown so much and Geared Up had grown so much, and
Yeah.
going into 2016, all of us decided we would compete together. Me, Adam, Dave Smith, all, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a bunch of my coworkers and clients. It was every person I knew. We were all going to basically prep together. And I decided going into 2016 that was going to be my final season.
Yeah.
I was going to retire after that, in part just because like every season, every prep had just been so taxing on me, and you know, just I never was able to find the right balance with work and life and all that.
Yeah.
And at that point in 2016, like that off season, I was at my peak. I was 315 pounds. I was in my mid 30s at this point, starting to use a more substantial amount of gear. You know,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
amount that I considered to be pretty high. And I just knew that like, and this was going to be my first time making a run at like a national show.
Yeah.
No intention to turn pro, but just, you know, want to stand on a national stage and look like I belonged up there. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
not look like an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and I would have been happy with that. Like top 10 at junior nationals, that's great. In my mind,
yeah.
that would have been, he, especially as a legit super heavy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take it. So, but I decided it was going to be my last prep because just I knew at that age, you know, I was starting to have some success as a competitive bodybuilder, but it was kind of late in life,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and I knew if I didn't draw a hard line in the sand, I would start chasing it
Yeah.
more and more and more. And I wasn't comfortable with the weight I was getting up to.
Oh, you go.
Um,
Oh, yeah, you go.
I might have to go get my phone charger to make sure my phone doesn't die, but I can do that. But yeah, I just wasn't comfortable with where I was at. I knew that the weights I was using, the guys, at some point sooner or later, something was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I decided to make 16 my final season, and I planned out this very elaborate final competition season, my swan song, if you will. Sorry about this. I'm just getting my phone charged.
It's okay. Yeah, I remember following it through Geared Up, because most of it was pretty much laid bare on Geared Up, you know.
Yeah. And as I got into the prep, just shit just started falling apart. My body was not responding well. I had gotten so heavy in the off season and stayed leaner than I typically had in past years, but I was just so heavy that like even doing any cardio, like mild walking on the treadmill, was just killing me with shin splints. But at this point, my business had grown to the point where my wife and I were trying to like go in on buying a chiropractic business because we had a vendor come to us who made a business deal. So we were trying to figure out legalities on that. And one of the local NPC people had asked my training company to franchise at this other gym. So we were trying to like make a transition doing that.
Yeah.
I had 21 other trainers who were working under me at this point. I was doing Geared Up, all that stuff, trying to organize events at my gym. All of this before I even like started prep. And then I went into prep.
Yeah.
and then like probably 10 weeks into prep, not even that far in, my body wasn't responding great, but I just had a series of just bad events. One of the guys who had become a trainer under Team Warrior Within, Chris Pisarzik, ended up he had a liver transplant 6 months prior and seemed to be well on the road to recovery. And then just really unexpectedly in the beginning of March 2016, he passed away on us, you know, and he was young. He was only in his 20s. I trained his wife, Holly, and was really close with her. And Chris was best friends with Dave Smith, the other guy that did the Geared Up podcast with us. So that happened. And then, you know, I was trying to help Holly get through it a little bit. And like literally, I don't even remember the exact order of events, but maybe like the next day, I was training one of my very long-term clients in person, and younger guy, 40-ish, and out of nowhere, he just had an aneurysm right in front of me, or a stroke. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, had to be taken to the hospital and all that stuff. And with the timing of it all, like I wanted to go to Chris's wake and I couldn't even go visit Corey in the hospital. My work's it was horrible.
Yeah.
And I remember being at Chris's wake, and I was with Dave Smith, and we were trying to console one another. And both of us were, you know, in prep.
Yeah.
And we stepped outside to eat our meals. And I remember eating this meal of like cold fish and sweet potato. And I could feel my stomach just like go bad. Is the only way to describe it. Like something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And sure enough, from that point on, I started having just really bad digestion problems. My food wouldn't digest properly. I had started having a little bit in 2012 at the very end of prep, but it was only the last few weeks of prep when I was like really running on more caffeine. Yeah, lower carbs. And then in 2014, when I prepped, it had happened again. This time a little, earlier in prep, but still kind of on the back end of it.
Yeah.
Where it was tolerable. Well, now it was happening like the very beginning of prep, and it takes me a full 20 plus weeks to prep, because I get so heavy. So here we are a couple weeks in, and I start having digestive problems. I'm like, oh shit. I was working with Matt Porter at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember it got to a point after experimenting for a few weeks where the only thing I could really comfortably eat was like protein shakes and rice cakes. So my diet consisted of 7 protein shakes and 14 rice cakes a day. Super nutritious. At 290 pounds with that kind of like workload and activity output. But that's what I was prepping on and dieting on. And then so that was kicking my ass. And then some of it too was just at that point there was just a lot of associated stress and pressure. I think because Geared Up had become so visible, we were all starting to post like progress pictures of one another online.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like I knew I was going to compete against Dave Smith. There was another guy who became a team warrior within trainer named Derek Natcher.
Yeah.
And he currently runs Loud Performance, which is an online coaching service.
Okay.
And but he became a colleague of mine who I would be a super heavy along with him, and he was a great bodybuilder. And just as this all started to coalesce, like I just think I started becoming more self-conscious and more concerned about, how am I going to do? Like all of a sudden there was in the past when I competed, you couldn't really research who you would go up against. Like you just showed up and you took your lumps and you took a chance.
Yeah.
But by the time 2016 had arrived, like there was this huge cult. There was this posse where, people were all following one another and comparing each other on social media. And I think just it kind of like ruined the party for me a little bit. I didn't enjoy it. Maybe I'm just not a competitive person. Maybe I'm too self-conscious. I don't know. But
yeah, well, I think a lot of that came through Geared Up, I mean, Geared Up became such a cult show, I think.
For sure.
I remember Dave Smith posting his photos from his attic room.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. But yeah, so just I was getting into this prep and just I could tell like things were not going well.
Yeah.
And I just started to struggle progressively more and more and more and more. And my ex-wife had planned on doing a show in April, which was about 4 weeks before the show I had planned on doing as my qualifier. I plan on doing this qualifier in May and then doing a couple national shows throughout June, July. And then being done. But as the months ticked by, like I just had the sense I wasn't going to make it. Like I wasn't going to make it through May into June and July. So come April, when my ex-wife was doing her show, I was reasonably close to where I wanted to be. I definitely wasn't at 100%, but I had put on a lot of quality sides since my competitions in 2014.
Yeah.
In 2014, I competed around 227 when I was working with Matt Porter and was very happy with my conditioning. In 2016, I competed. I weighed in at 255 and change, so almost 30 pounds heavier. But realistically, I still had a good 6 to 8 pounds of fat to strip.
Yeah.
But either way, I wanted to showcase. I'd finally, like in those last 2 seasons I was training, like I'd finally started to properly utilize all the drugs and take advantage of some of the benefits of having successful business, like having a good coach and eating quality food, and still not taking care of myself, but at least doing the things that a good bodybuilder does. So yeah, I ended up doing the show earlier than planned, won the super heavies, not the overall. And after that, I continued going to work and trying to prep, but I just started breaking down like every day. Just started turning into like an emotional wreck, emotional basket case. I go to the gym, I'd start training, I'd start crying, get frustrated, just all shit. So I ended up shutting it down early, deciding that I wasn't gonna prep, it was really challenging because my wife, my ex-wife, Nikki, and I were both really invested in this in so many ways, financially, just our identity, everybody following us.
Yeah.
We had both worked so hard to do it. And I told Nick, I was like, I need to shut this down. I've just hit a breaking point, where
Yeah.
like I knew it was coming for years and it's here. And I don't know what to do because I have a feeling if you continue to prep, like I don't know how we're gonna do this. And I kind of encouraged her or asked her to shut it down with me, which I still to this day feel bad about. Like
Yeah.
I kind of made her shut her run down
Yeah.
prematurely. And I don't think she was happy about that, but she was kind enough to kind of do it for me at that point.
Yeah.
Just knew that things had been bad for a while.
Okay.
I needed that support.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, we ended up doing our final show April 2016. And with that, or a couple weeks later into May, when I decided I was done with the competition run, I also decided that I needed to take some time off from training at the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
At this point, our online business had grown pretty big, and I was still doing Geared Up, and I was still training in person. I had finally scaled back to 5 days a week in person, but still a lot. So I decided I was just going to take a hiatus. Nikki would continue to be a trainer at Coliseum with her normal schedule.
Yeah.
I had a dozen other trainers there who were part of the training company, Team Warrior Within. They would all keep doing their thing. I would still coordinate everything, but I would just work from home for a while, which, more than anything for me, I felt I hadn't been present during my daughter's, first couple years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just with how much I worked and never being able to take time off and always being exhausted. So as she started getting older, by 2016, she's pushing 7 years old, 6 years old. It just mattered too much to me to be there and be more present,
Mhm.
and I was having a lot of conflict with that. So I decided I would step down and just work from home with my online clients for a while, indefinitely, and see what happened. And that allowed me to like have 3 days a week where I would get my daughter off the bus and spend a lot of time with her. It was great.
Yeah.
But of course, stupid me, like, what did I do? I used it as an excuse to grow my online business.
Okay.
So my online business just grows, because like, again, at this point, I was just so constantly saturated with client leads and referrals, and my network had grown so much.
Yeah.
And I had no, planned strategy on like how to turn this into a viable, sustainable business. It was just, oh, there's success there, jump at it.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I had become a routine thing for me at this point. So I
Yeah.
didn't even like stop to consider, hey, is that what you should do? So I kept adding online clients. And sure enough, within 4 or 5 months, stepped back, looked at things with my ex-wife, and realized I can make so much money just doing online. I don't need to be an in-person trainer anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've always talked about eventually getting out of Baltimore. Now might be the time. Let's do it. So I came back, trained clients in person in 2017, just for the first few months of the year, in order to save up some cash for a downstroke on the home.
Yeah.
And then mid 2017, we left Baltimore, moved out to Providence, Rhode Island, which is where my ex-wife's family is from.
Yeah.
In large part, we kind of thought by that point I had been struggling, progressively over the last couple of years, with mental health, with just rage and with depression and stuff like that, with sleep issues. And we kind of thought that maybe a change of venue where like, we could just like, I had almost like run away from my success, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I didn't know how else to manage it. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to do anything. So, that was a large motivator in why we were looking to move. And if we're going to do it, we want to do it before our daughter got too old, so
Yeah.
she could
Yeah.
establish friendships and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So sure enough, mid 2017, we moved up to Providence with the intention of just working from the house. And when we did, stuff just went like from bad to worse so rapidly because stupid me, here I am taking I still have a plate that's fully loaded with my online work schedule. You know what I mean? It's still a very rough work schedule. Only now I'm taking myself out of this environment that I've spent 10 years building that's incredibly positive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this whole community and this whole family that I built.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go run and isolate myself in a house, you know, with no structured work schedule.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a stupid idea.
Yeah, it's like cutting an arm off, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it did not work. I will say that.
Did you have problems then because you were on top of each other all the time, or?
A little bit. Yeah, you know, it was just such a drastic transition. You got to remember that, like, when I was training clients in person in the gym, you know, over the years, I was finally able to shorten up my schedule a little bit so that, like, the last couple of years I was working as a trainer, I think I only trained clients in person 4 days a week. And I would only train from like, what, 2 to 9. It's probably like 7 or 8 hours straight.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's still 14 to 16 people.
Yeah.
In a day. Yeah. And rare was the day when I wasn't booked solid, you know. A day like that requires a lot of energy output. You know, a lot of running around and kind of talking to different people and running yourself ragged. And next thing you know, you find yourself sitting alone in a house with one other person with no real output for that energy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, you see so many different faces throughout the day. Then, you know, you've always got some sort of interaction. You always got something to smile about. You've always got a story to tell. You know,
right.
But then when you're going home to Nikki, she's probably heard all the stories a million times before, and you know, it kind of gets a bit stale after a while, I suppose.
Yeah, but really, you know, the thing is, I pushed myself. Like, so we moved up to Rhode Island in mid 2017. I had started feeling the real damaging effects in 2016 during my contest prep.
Yeah,
that was when I knew, like, this is a sinking ship and I can't hold it together anymore. But going back, when I started going through all my, like, recovery and therapy and all that, like, I had written emails as far back as 2010 to Nikki saying, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't push myself at this pace. I need help.
Yeah.
So, like, I was always kind of aware of it and always kind of expressed it to various people. And
did she never read the email?
I want to be kind and positive, so we won't go down that road.
Oh, did you never send it?
No, I definitely sent it. I will say that communication with my ex-wife was not always our strong suit.
Okay.
And not for my lack of trying.
Okay.
I love my ex-wife, but she was not always easy to communicate with.
Well, we're all different people, aren't we?
Yes. So, I mean, but in a lot of ways, you know, like, I was asking for help and seeking it in different ways. I just didn't know the proper ways to seek. Just, of course, with finding a good psychiatrist and, you know, making some lifestyle adjustment. You know, at the time, it probably would have fallen on deaf ears to a degree, but I also knew that what I was doing was not sustainable and didn't feel okay. And I needed to find a way to kind of balance it out. So yeah, in a lot of ways, like, my business over the years was a series of experimenting to try to find ways of relieving some of this pressure, if you will. And then things just, like, got worse because all of a sudden I developed a new system that should allow things to be more efficient, but all that ended up happening was, like, cram more people in. You know what I mean? Like,
bring more workload.
Yeah, it was stupid. And, and shame on me for that. Like at some point, I'm a grown, rational adult. I could have stepped back at some point and said,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, it's difficult.
this is what our budget needs to be.
Yeah.
This is the hours I'm going to invest into the, what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I didn't do that. I just tried a bunch of different pathways to, oh, maybe this will succeed and work well. Okay, it did.
Yeah.
Maybe this will succeed and work well. Okay, it did. Like even Geared Up, like all the time I did Geared Up, I told Adam right out of the gate, because at first I didn't want to do it when he proposed it to me because I was already so busy.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, dude, like it won't be hard. I'll do it. He said, he said, no, he told me, he goes, I'll do everything. Like I'll set everything up. You don't gotta worry about it. It'll be my baby. All you gotta do is show up once a week and record for
Okay.
2-3 hours a week. I'm like, all right, I can commit to that. And I did. And then as time went on, I got a little more involved with like
Yeah,
posting
yeah.
on the forum and like writing the outline and stuff like that. But like overall, I never, like, it got to the point where Geared Up had a lot of sponsors and
Yeah.
a decent amount of visibility. I never took advantage hardly of any of it. Like
Yeah,
I got some product from True Nutrition. I got some product from Project AD and some product from like Iron Rebel.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like there were companies that were great to us and I absolutely appreciate and respect them. Companies that we worked with, Divine Nutrition was another one.
Yeah.
There were a handful, and I'm beyond grateful for that. I guess my only point is like I never even attempted to tap into the opportunities that were associated with Geared Up.
Yeah. Well, you were being so
Because
successful in your own right. So
oh yeah, I considered it a point like it would probably just be a waste of my time actually,
yeah.
because I was doing so well, making so much money, doing the training thing, that it just ate up, all my focus.
Yeah.
And yeah, it hit a point where like we tried kind of transitioning it into an actual company, where I had a bunch of trainers working under me and had hired somebody to help with our advertising, and he wanted me blogging more, first once a week, then twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 4 times a week, blogging, podcasting, writing blogs for other trainers, teaching other trainers, mentoring. Yeah, it just was stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I should have made a decision at that point to either say, all right, I'm going to stay in my lane, be a trainer. Here's what my income is going to be, and I'll be good with that. Or I'm going to take a year and just step back and not make any money as a trainer, but build a company that will then be sustainable. I'll be the manager or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. Instead of following the yellow brick road, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I had no training in business and I don't know what I'm doing.
But where are you now then, Dave?
So I'm living in Providence, Rhode Island still. We've been here for about almost 4 years. Like it here. We are talking about moving again. My ex-wife doesn't like the area, so she's kicking around some different ideas, and chances are wherever she moves, I'll go to the same area because I want to stay in my daughter's life.
Yeah. So you're not back together then?
No. We ended up going through, the worst, the depression, everything. It was terrible for Nikki because she had to absorb all of it, like there was nobody else there. And I just really cut myself off from everybody else that had been a part of my life. So, she tried really hard for a good year. I don't know how long, a good year and a half at the end there. Once we moved up to Rhode Island, tried to find different ways to get me help or to help me through things. And some worked, some did not, but it was just too much. And, I just been too big of a prick over the years, during our relationship. On top of that, like looking back with 2020, we just were never a good fit. Like we never really were after the same things in life, the same lifestyle, and just always wanted to walk some pretty radically different paths. So it was hard to come to terms with that at first, with all the grieving and loss and all that. But it is what it is. So ended up separating and then ultimately getting divorced. We finalized it early 2020.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yep.
shame.
But living nearby though, so we can co-parent, and my daughter's sleeping in her bed right now, and get her on the
Okay.
weekends.
Yeah.
My daughter
Yeah.
Raven, she'll
Yeah.
be 12 in July, and we have a pretty good time together. So
Yeah. I mean, my
Brilliant.
daughter lives 1 week with her mother and 2 weeks with me. So,
okay.
also, but yeah, that can be also challenging. So,
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this podcast at 6 in the morning.
yeah. Yeah.
So I know if I try taking time out during the day, that's hard time. I'll never hear the end of it, and I'll
Yeah.
be beaten with a foam sword.
Well, she's 12.
So
You say she's 12 now?
she's 11. She'll be 12 in a couple
Yeah.
months.
Well, she's grown into a
Yeah.
young lady then,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
starting to develop her own identity, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's funny, all of a sudden becoming like really physically assertive, and feeling out her body, just getting super tall,
Yeah.
just changing super fast. So it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
But
cool,
yeah,
man.
like coming through it all, finally getting some help through the worst of the depression and shit in 2018 and all that. Getting some help first with psychiatric meds to help with the depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And then that made enough of an impact that I was able to start, like going to therapy and actually getting something out of it, getting something out of daily meditation, and just starting to do a lot more reading on, mental health and mental hygiene, how to better
Yeah.
take care of
Yeah.
yourself, some of that. The problem is, I think I had warning signs for years that I just ignored and powered through.
Yeah.
So by the time it finally hit, it hit hard.
Yeah.
And it took
Yeah.
and it ended up taking a while to dig back out of, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
In terms of like fixing my sleep patterns, pulling myself. The depression was not just garden variety depression, but it was actual like adrenal issue
Yeah. Okay.
depression.
Yeah.
I ended up having noradrenaline deficiencies that had to be fixed first before we could address like the regular depression that was there as well.
Yeah.
Just from years of chronic not sleeping and taking too much caffeine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we slowly dug out with that, and then went through therapy and all that, and since then doing much better and understand much more about myself and kind of what drives me and what I need to watch out for, and
Yeah.
what I need to do to live a life that feels better.
Yeah.
Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to say we would like to see more of you, get you back on the circuit, but not to your own detriment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. No, I don't think I'll. I'm back. Coaching clients again. I continued, like, even when I started going through all the depression, everything was really bad. Mostly in 2018, my coaching business was still really big, but I continued to push it.
Yeah.
And finally, at the end of 2018, as a means of trying to get a little bit better. My wife and I had separated at this point. We're still going to try to work things out, but I decided to cut my client load in half, basically cut my business in half, see if it felt a little better.
Yeah.
It felt better for a while. It was okay for a while, but then it just got worse again because I hadn't taken enough of a step back. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
And kept getting worse, and I just hit a point where I just shut my business down completely and had no coaching clients for a while, starting towards like about 2019, and just had to take a really solid break from it and really just kind of get my head together and learn how to take better care of myself and all that. And I've been back now to coaching for the past. I kept a small handful of clients throughout that time, but not many at all.
Yeah.
So, and then I've been coaching more, just a higher volume of clients again since basically beginning of 2021.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it. It feels good, and it's nice to be helping people again and see them achieve their goals, and motivating me a little bit to maybe get my shit back together in this next month or two. So
Okay, yeah, it's pretty difficult in this lockdown situation we're in.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of it will depend where we end up moving to when we move.
Okay.
But I will say, like my first year and a half of training, I trained all in my basement, before I went to the gym, and I loved it. Like I
Yeah,
loved
yeah,
training, loved just doing my own thing and less distraction, more meditative.
yeah,
So who knows? Who knows? But I don't think I'll ever be a competitor again. I have no desire to do that. I don't think I'll ever push to be huge again. But
yeah,
just get back to consistent training and eating healthy and the march towards full recovery, if you
yeah.
will.
Well, yeah. The key to it is enjoying it. Once you stop
Yeah, yeah,
enjoying it, then the wheels tend to fall off a little bit. So just make sure you
right,
keep enjoying what you're doing. Don't overload yourself again.
right. Oh
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
if you need help, make sure you reach out for help, man. It's
Yeah,
I know you said you reached out and it had fallen on deaf ears, but
a little bit, but that's the thing, like I personally found with all the psych stuff, once I started going through it, the most challenging thing for me was just kind of learning the lingo, the vocabulary, and learning
yeah,
how to communicate properly, because you sit down with this, medical professional or therapist or whatever, and they have very exact ways that they use words and describe things. And you're sitting there trying to describe this mishmash of feelings that's going on inside of you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, what are the problems? And learning how to address what are the problems.
yeah,
That becomes challenging. So it took a lot of reading and really learning a lot of the dialogue. I think a lot of the problem is that, at least, and I don't know, this is intrinsic to the sport, but for me, bodybuilding is very much exercise of kind of learning to ignore how your body feels.
yeah. It
You know
is,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I
Like
mean, you
you're
have to
just
build up
supposed
such
to,
such a mental strength,
right?
to go
Well,
through
and
the
and
physical pain of it.
and it and it's about pushing yourself.
Yeah,
So push yourself on low calories, pushing yourself in the gym, pushing yourself with your cardio, all of that stuff. And bodybuilding promotes that and breeds
yeah,
that mentality. And with that, you learn to, kind of block out how you feel.
yeah,
And, that was a huge part of the problem, was just not assessing as I went along, how am I really feeling? And, how do
yeah,
we,
yeah,
is it good? Is it not good? Certain things were really good, like the fact that we were succeeding,
yeah,
but I always felt like I was kind of drowning with one arm coming up above the water. You know what I mean? Like I was
yeah, yeah,
succeeding, but just barely,
yeah,
scraping to make sure.
yeah. Somebody
So
need to throw your life jacket.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you
Mm.
think you would have succeeded as well as you had if you had listened to your body, though, David, as well? Do you think you could have
Well, again,
managed both?
you at that point you can get into the subjective discussion of what is success.
Yeah.
I think I would have been more successful in the sense that I could have built something sustainable, not melted down, possibly avoided a divorce, possibly avoided shutting my business down, rebuilding it, relocating, all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I could have been more successful in that sense. Um, but at the same time, it's hard to say. Like,
Mm.
that's also what made me successful in so many ways. Um, when you look at, like, I always love the example of Dorian Yates. People talk about training and training styles, and should I train with volume or should I train high intensity style? And you always look at Dorian as the shining example of a high intensity approach to training. And with Dorian, it seemed to allow for a degree of density and mass that was never really paralleled. Ronnie was there, but Dorian seemed to achieve it just through sheer willpower, which is why
Mhm.
so many bodybuilders, including myself, kind of look up to him as the pinnacle of the sport in a lot of ways. And with that, he ended up tearing his body apart. Like the way he tore his biceps off the bone, the way he tore his triceps, the way he tore his hip, kind of put him into retirement prematurely. So then you get a lot of spectators of the sport that criticize, someone like Sean Ray or something like that. They'll say, "Oh, if Dorian had been smarter and had known when to back it down."
Yeah.
But he was also 6-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Sean was never Mr. Olympia, and I know he would trade just about anything for that.
Yeah.
So it becomes a question of what drove Dorian, allowed him to be the greatest, but it also kind of broke him in a lot of ways premature. I mean, like, look at Ronnie, another great example.
Yeah.
Like, his feats were literally, his video was called The Unbelievable because he was unbelievable, and he was. And every pro still talks about him in those words, like, "Oh man, it's just the workouts were ungodly and otherworldly and all the stuff." They're still in awe. 20 years later, they're still in awe of this giant among men. But he's a cripple. He's a straight up cripple. And I'm sure in a lot of ways he's very happy and proud of the life he lived. But I'm sure in a lot of ways, and this is where you get in debates with people online and whatnot, but whatever, I'm gonna say it. If you're living in pain all the time, like, you're not really happy in certain ways.
Sure.
Like, you're happy and miserable at the same time.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
So, it's the point. I have this mentality that, like, this is the price you pay for greatness. Like, just, you're gonna wear yourself down to a nub, and that's fine. Just, like, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
But so it allowed me to be really successful in a lot of things. Yeah, successful in a lot of things. But it made me hate life in a lot of ways. That eventually I wasn't willing to live with any longer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a shame, man. It's a shame how it all comes out in the end.
Yeah,
one minute you're living the dream, and the next minute you're scratching around on your knees. And,
but
it makes no sense.
But I think the end game for anyone that you have this conversation with is, are you legitimately to a spot now where you're kind of grateful for it all?
Yeah.
And again, I've gotten to the point now where, am I where I want to be in life? 100%? No, but I more or less enjoy my life and what I'm doing with my time right now.
Yeah.
More than anything, I'm enjoying the time that I get with my daughter, and that we've built just an incredible relationship. We're best friends and try to spend as much time together as we can. Since we only get to see each other 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah.
When I have that time with her, I really try to make it focused, where I'm not, dicking around on my phone or dealing with a million competitors at once or whatever, as it was during the first chunk of her life.
Yeah.
That and grateful for the fact of getting back into music after a 15-year hiatus and finding that I'm still good at it, and it's a lot of fun, and all this stuff. And then after these last couple of years, even though for the last year and a half, 2 years, I've been out of, like, the depression and the worst of the darkness, I was still, like, working through the divorce, and I hadn't talked to anybody in several years. Yeah. So I had, like, a lot of built up kind of shame and anxiety about just talking and being open about it with everybody. So, these last several months, just kind of finally shaking that off and saying, screw it, like, just put yourself back out there, talk openly about your shit. Everybody does. It's part of getting older. It's part of growing up. Everybody goes through it. And, with that, I'm very grateful for the fact just these last few months, how much my coaching business is starting to pick back up, and I'm enjoying it again. And I'm excited, again, for the first time in a long time. I'm excited to see what comes these next few months. If I start working out a little bit again, get back into coaching again, see what life has in store for me.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
It took a while.
Yeah, just take it easy.
Oh, I am, for sure. No, I'm doing a much better job, and that's Like every night before I go to bed, I write out a schedule for myself for the next day. Just write out an email schedule,
Yeah.
know what time I'm going to wake up, and I make sure to set a side time every morning, first thing in the morning. I get up, I meditate. I spend a while reading, just trying to just really relax through my mornings. So I have plenty of time to ease into my day, and have continued doing therapy with one of my online clients. She's actually a hypnotherapist, so I still meet with her every other week or once a week.
Yeah.
More than anything, when I started to finally address my problems in 2017, 2018, I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of things, because I knew I had known for years that I was having certain issues, and they seemed to be repetitious. So if I was going to address it, I wanted to really learn what was going on. So I spent these last couple years, really reading as much as I could, just about psychology, psychiatry, the drug side of it, the brain side of it, the practical side of applying different therapeutic techniques. And again, that's just kind of how I am. Like when I get into something, I throw myself into it a little bit to learn it better and make sure I really get it. So that's been my focus these last few years, but now kind of putting it all to better use and being consistent with it, and, to some degree helping other people with it. Like I've talked to a lot of people in this last year that, whether it was a client of mine or just an old friend of mine or whatever, who had various mental health issues, anxiety issues, sleep issues, stuff like that, where I was able to at least help explain some of it to them better, have a conversation, have a conversation with them about, because the first thing is just people have a hard time owning up to that,
They
saying,
do.
hey,
Yeah.
people don't like to talk about that stuff. I certainly didn't. I don't think anybody does.
No.
But once they open up to you and you start to, they build some trust with you and realize they're not alone, that you've had trouble as well. It's been nice that I've been through so much of it. With that, I've been able to help a lot of other people with just supplement recommendations and behavioral modification recommendations and stuff like that, that's helped them to just feel better and make sure they don't start spinning off the rails.
You'll need to have a chat with me off the air, I guess.
Right.
See if I can sort out my sleep issues.
Yeah.
God, man, I got such bad sleep. I have such a bad sleep. But I also work shift work, so that doesn't help at all.
Yeah. What do you do?
I work in a truck manufacturing company, and I work 3 shifts. And so when I'm on night shift, I'm lucky if I sleep 3 hours a day,
Yeah.
And by the end of the week, I'm a wreck. So, and especially at my age as well. I mean, shift work is a young man's game, really. I mean, I don't think you should be working shifts when you're over 50. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was working 3 shifts, and I never had a problem. I could sleep for 8 or 9 hours a day, But now with the pressure of life, I've also got a young daughter, and I've got to take her to school, pick her up from school, and plus I'm working all through the night, and it definitely weighs you down, and you get to a point where it's like, well, man, how am I going to keep going?
Yep. I know it. So, I got to that point for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, like so much of it is just learning how to kind of check in with yourself several times throughout the day, and just really minor stuff. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have asked me, what have I done that's helped me change? And, because I'm not taking any psych meds anymore. Just behavioral change, and so much of it is just as corny as it sounds, like having several points throughout the day where you just take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you can afford, and just sitting down and breathing.
Yeah.
And, you know, doing almost like a mini meditation, like just blocking everything out, not checking your phone, not responding to texts,
Yeah.
not worrying about any of it, not letting your mind race at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You know, if you can self-impose that throughout, you know, a couple times throughout a really hectic day,
Yeah.
I think it can be something of a game changer. You
Yeah.
know, but it's just retaining, because I still have, well, my life isn't super busy right now, but like a couple months ago I started working a job at Amazon doing package delivery in a van,
Yeah.
you know, just 4 days a week, and I'm coaching outside of that. And with the Amazon gig, like the pacing, they want you to go fast, and again, it's just kind of who I am. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna rock it, you know what I mean? So I'm the fastest dude on our fleet, even though I'm a lot older than a lot of these kids.
Yeah.
And it's because when I get there, like when we start, I just go full tilt from beginning till end. I take no breaks, I take no rests.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just kind of how I am. It's a game to see how fast I can get out of there. But even with that, you know, making sure on either end of it, I'm putting in kind of these momentary shutdown, breathing, relaxation, you know, finding times throughout your day, or in the beginning of your day, or at the end of your day. I think it's harder at the end, harder at the end of the day, but finding times every day where you can kind of reconnect with your body and how you actually feel, and just kind of be present without be attending to 8 million things at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's very corny and basic and not super advanced. You know what I mean? But literally, I had lost the ability to do that for just years and years and years and years and years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think doing that, it'll at least keep you in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Where you need to be. Because then if something really wrong is happening, you'll find out before it happens, you know.
Yeah. Maybe you'll recognize the signs a bit sooner.
Right. Yep.
So okay. Well, I think that's about all we got, Dave.
Yeah.
Let you get to your daughter. She must be getting up soon.
Probably not for a couple more hours, but we'll see. That's all right. I got plenty to keep me occupied this morning. So, but yeah, cool, it was a blast coming on. I appreciate it, guys, and just let me know when it's going to come out.
Yeah, it'll come out in a couple of weeks.
For anybody who happens to be watching along and is interested in the work that I'm doing, you mind if I plug my stuff?
No, sorry. Go on. Give us your socials and.
Yeah, so anybody that's interested in finding out about my coaching services, what I do as a coach for contest prep, for just body transformation, anything like that, you can go on either Facebook or Instagram, look up Team Warrior Within, or you can look up David Johnston Training. So on Instagram, it's at TWW Training, and on Facebook, it's Team Warrior Within. And you'll see, lately I've been posting every single day a different person that I've transformed, you know, from the years that I've been coaching. So I've been doing that over the last couple months, just having fun, showing off some people I've worked with, and you know, we'll see what ends up going on with social media and all that stuff in the coming months. If I'm gonna put a little more energy into it, get back to writing a little bit, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'll put your links up anyway, so in the show notes and stuff, and we'll promote it on our Facebook page. So, and I do follow you on your socials, so I do see the photographs of the transformations every day.
Yeah.
So cool. Some of them are quite impressive.
Working on some new ones now.
Yeah.
Putting together some new ones. Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Got a couple awesome competitors getting ready to do their thing this season, and you know, I can't wait to see what they can get done. So
yeah. Okay. Cool, man.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So we'll leave it there. Okay, thanks, David. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you guys so much. And Terry and David, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we're back.
Yeah.
As if by magic. It's amazing technology. I know. I probably messed up at the end of the video, but at the end of the interview, as I normally do with my pause recording. But luckily, I'm getting better at editing, so it's still not
Magic.
quite the same. It's still not quite right, but
The magic of TV.
it'll be fine. Yeah, a bit like Benny Hill, probably. Benny Hill had better continuity than us, but
Maybe.
I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was now. I need to start making notes.
Okay.
Show notes.
Yeah. All I would say, I mean, obviously the podcast that we just seen with Dave is touches a lot on mental health, which obviously is a very important subject. And I think as men, we're too afraid to admit to it sometimes. So I think it's really important if anybody out there is feeling unwell or not 100%, don't be afraid to go out and ask for some help and get some information, because it is really, really important. And I think David has sort of shown that really. He did say he just kept ignoring it and pushing his body and his mind to extremes that it couldn't go to, and in the end it sort of broke, unfortunately, and that's kind of like what happens. So really you want to try and fix it before you get to that stage. But it is a very important subject, very important that
so that's a message that we touched on and we try to get across in this episode was especially for men, like you said, they brush it under the carpet. But come on men come on guys, sometimes it is okay to tell people that you're not okay, and really if you're struggling, you can always mention it in the group. If you don't, if you want to be a bit more public about it, you can always drop a message in the group. I'm sure somebody will talk to you about some stuff, and I know I will, or Dave, you probably will, and we're always here for a natter. We can always chop about something. So
or if people don't feel that they want to do it and they want to PM us, if you're
PM,
friends with us, just PM away and we'll talk to you about it. Obviously we're not experts in it and we wouldn't claim to be experts in it, but
I'm nowhere near.
We got some news that we're happy to listen to anybody that's got something to say. So
that's right. I went through a rough time when my mother died, and I was really rock bottom. And I did actually phone the Samaritans once, and they were about as useful as a fucking bag of dog shit.
Oh dear.
So I don't know if that's changed. So I'm always available for a listen. So
that's it. That's it. Me too. I'm the same.
So so don't suffer in silence, guys.
Yeah, definitely. That's really, really, really important. And I think the message from Dave was, David calls himself David.
David,
he was a big guy, macho, doing a bodybuilding sport, 315 pounds of solid muscle, and to hear him talking about it, for me, it was really, really enlightening. And I know we touched on our previous podcast about Tyson Fury. These guys do go through it. They're all human. We forget they're human sometimes, and the mind is fragile compared to the body.
It is, unfortunately.
It's very, very important to talk about. So I think what we'll do is we'll in the links we'll post some websites that perhaps people, if they need to talk, like Mind, and there's lots of other organizations, and we'll make some references to those as well in the Just Chopsing and the members page, because it is important. Very important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is okay to say you're not okay. That's the message I want to get across, really.
Definitely.
Too many people do brush it under the carpet. We've lost a few people in our lives, and some through suicide, unfortunately. And it's a terrible thing. Thanks for listening to that episode. If you've listened to it, thanks for listening. But on a brighter note, I did make I'm such a fucking idiot,
Okay.
On a brighter note, I did make a post in the group the other day saying that the videos were neck and neck between the Big Dirty and James Kennedy on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. They had 61 views each.
That's right.
But the Big Dirty have just crept into the lead with 62 views.
They've overtaken him, I think.
They have. They've overtaken James Kennedy.
So
Now,
all
only
you
James-
James Kennedy fans need to get on there and watch James Kennedy to get him back in front. And then the
Yes.
big dirty lot need to get on there and watch it and get the big dirty back in front.
That's right. So
You ain't going to win anything, but you go on your band being at the bottom.
that's right. Maybe they can win a CD.
Yes.
Maybe we can get in touch with James, or I'll tell you what we can do. I can get in touch with James and the Big Dirty, actually. And the first video that gets to 100 views, maybe we can send that 100th viewer a CD from either one of the
Let's
either one of the
raffle it
bands.
to make it fairer. So we'll get all the viewers together and
Okay.
raffle. So because somebody might have watched the first and said, "Well, I'm the first viewer and I'm going to win it." So if we put them all in a hat,
Okay.
or you could, or with your IT experience now, you could probably do some sort of clever thing in Excel, and we'll pick out the name at random out of the 100 viewers, and they could win some.
Okay. And
Yeah.
the easiest way to tell us that you've watched the video actually would be to go to the website www.justchopsing.com and sign up to the mailing list. So just put your email address in there, and then I can email everybody back because I've made a group, and then I can email everyone and they can say, yeah, they watched which video, because we won't know which video they've watched, but they can tell me which video they've watched, and then they can win a prize.
That sounds good.
But we have to get to 100 views.
Yeah.
On both.
Okay. And the first one wins. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's
So the
do that
first
then.
one
Yeah.
wins a prize.
Well, I fancy doing a prize for our Chopsy Lot group. So we're at 97 members.
No, I checked today. It was
So-
99.
99, is
I
it?
think so. Yeah. I
Oh,
think it was
so
99 today.
Okay, so if we get to 100, then we need to have a think about doing another raffle and perhaps what we could do for that. So I'll have a think about that this week. And if we reach 100, we'll do a raffle for that as well. And some lucky member could win something very, very special. It could be a first off or something.
Okay. First
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, could be a prototype.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
intrigued.
Okay. I got an idea.
Have you invented something?
No,
Oh.
I'm not. No.
Okay.
Nothing that exciting. But it could
Well,
be
I'm
a
intrigued.
prototype of summer. Yeah, I'll have a think.
Okay. I don't know why you're going to make a prototype of it.
So yeah, we'll do that as well.
All right. Very good. I'm
Yeah.
really intrigued. I might have to sign up myself. Be that 100th member. No, I'm already a member. I just joined the other week.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that as well. So yeah, I think perhaps what we'll do then, we will put a separate post in there telling people you need to watch it. And once we get to 100 views, it could be a bit of merch coming your way.
Yeah. Okay. Merch?
Yeah,
Ooh, have we got merch?
not yet.
Oh.
But there could be some prototype merch on
It could
its
be
way.
a pen.
Yeah,
It could be a cup.
could be
It could be a
anything.
t-shirt. It could be a baseball cap. We don't know what we're gonna make yet.
Or we're going to merchandise, yeah. Could be some pants because people are probably running out of pants now in lockdown.
Yeah. Well, I bought my socks, so
Yeah.
I'm sock friendly again.
Good. Well, yeah,
But I've had it for a few weeks now.
your feet are probably more friendly rather than being sock friendly.
Well, I very rarely wear socks around the house, so I tend to only wear them to work.
All
to be
right.
honest.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't like having socks on my feet.
No. Yeah, I don't wear socks very often actually. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some embroidered socks on the go.
Yeah. Could
You do understand that our initials are JC, don't you?
Yes.
So you could have some JC socks. No, that's tickled me now. Don't cut your nails in them.
Oh dear me.
No. Oh, that's gonna We'll have the God Squad after us now. Oh dear. All right, yeah. I'll tell you what we need to do as well. We've got all these interviews coming up, and we'll have to have a couple of our own shows.
Yes,
because we do tend to have a bit of a laugh, and maybe people are missing out. I'm missing out on our dry humor, or my dry humor anyway.
Because the most watched one is one of our first ones, or the second ones, I think.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah, the first one had 81 views.
We were just talking nonsense.
Yeah, the second one didn't do so good, but the first.
What did we say in the first?
I think Neil watched
the second one.
I think Neil must have got bored halfway through watching the second one. We need to get
Neil to watch the second one 50 times then.
Oh dear. All right then, mate. I better crack on your Sunday. I'm going to have some dinner and hope everyone enjoys the interview.
Yeah.
I just said it was Sunday. I'm going to release this on Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
I'm going to release this on a midweek.
Yeah, so
as a bonus episode.
I won't tell anybody the result of Formula One because obviously that happened Sunday and it's Wednesday today. Yeah, but what I have got, I've been supporting a Steelhouse T-shirt during this podcast, and they're a local festival to me up in Ebervale. Obviously, it didn't happen last year, unfortunately, because of COVID. Yeah. I'm still hoping it's going to be happening this year. Anthrax had just pulled out because of COVID. Although my dad said Anthrax is worse than COVID, so you don't want him coming over anyway.
That's right. They'll send it through the post.
Yeah. And I said, but the other band up there is Therapy, so we could all probably do a bit of that anyway, couldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, check it out. It's a great little festival. It happens over 3 days. I'll put it in our socials because there's a members group called Steelhouse Arch, which they've got thousands of people on there. So it's a great little festival, and check it out. We've had some big names up there in the past, and hopefully in the future. So
I can't believe Anthrax are pulled out then.
Gutting. Yeah, I was looking forward to that because there was another band that I liked when I was a kid as well.
Yeah.
So, but they can't travel from the States, unfortunately. And
okay.
I think all the other bands on there are British, possibly. I think
Therapy British. I thought they were American.
No, Anthrax are. Therapy British?
I don't think so.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're already over here then. They haven't pulled out yet.
Okay.
Maybe they'll be the next band to go then. But there's lots of homegrown bands on there this year. So you've got the ones we've mentioned, like Chris Barris, Those Damn Crows, Wayward Sons, Mason Hill are on there.
Raiders on there? Raiders?
Who?
Raiders?
Not sure. I'll have to have a look.
Probably.
Yeah, there's lots of good homegrown bands on there, and it's awesome. You know, you got the tickets are dirt cheap. I think it's like 80 quid for the weekend, and you get to see 20 odd bands, something like that. It's unbelievable. Cool. The beer's only £4 a pint instead of like £25 a pint from Wembley if you go and see these bands in Wembley. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's a really, really good weekend. But it always pisses down with rain. So we're wellies because I guarantee it'll rain. Guarantee. Okay. Every weekend it rained. So when they cancelled it last year, it rained on the weekend of Steelhouse when it should have been.
Oh,
believe it or not. So it was like 48 degrees C, and then it came to the Friday, it hammered down with rain, and then on the Monday it picked back up to 48 degrees C again. Unbelievable.
I don't believe it was 48 degrees C in fucking Wales.
Oh, it was amazing. Absolutely awesome it was, yeah.
That's Las Vegas temperatures. So you're running a bit of a gamble, eh?
I had to turn the hot tub off. It was that hot. So Steelhouse. Check it out.
All right, cool. All right, and on that. Oh, I got some news.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding Nerds Radio might be no more. Because VJ apparently has texted Scott after doing the show for 6 years, maybe 7 years, I think.
Right.
VJ has texted Scott and said he doesn't want to do it anymore. So that's a bit of bad news for the bodybuilding nerds community.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's great little show. You used to listen to on a Friday. I messaged Scott and said I was really sick since he's left you by text message after so long. It's like splitting up with your girlfriend, I suppose.
Yeah.
And but I'm always available to go on the show. So.
Yeah, do it. Get on there.
I just spent 2 hours plugging my own show. Or our own show, I should say.
That's it. Get on there. Get on
All
there
right.
and plug it.
All right, then, mate.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah.
Enjoy your evening.
Okay. Yeah, we'll feel better.
Yeah, me too. And we'll leave it there. Try,
Yeah.
lads.
Yeah. Take
Try,
care.
Neil.
Ta-ra.
Try, Neil. I know you'll
Ta-ra.
listen to the end. Try, mate. Try.
That's all right.